We have two guests in the studio. Before we introduce them, let's hear the day's proverb from City.
One hand cannot applaud.
One hand cannot applaud.
No. And do tried very hard to tell us that they're the Inuit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you see? Validation. Thank you, Mark.
They do what?
No, he
Mark
went,
just did.
and then to add on to.
Right.
Okay. So that's one hand. What is this usually called?
It's called snapping.
Oh, the finger, and it's an applaud. It's an applause?
Yes, in some
It
way.
is. It
Yeah.
is. It is.
The people of Algeria
So
have
Algeria
never seen
people
this.
lied to you.
The Algeria people know applauding as
Something that
Clapping
an entire
hands.
hand does when it meets another hand. Yes.
Okay.
When fingers meet each other, that's a different matter. But if we're talking about the universality of meanings, I think Mark here has a point. Fingers can applaud each other.
Okay.
Okay.
The Mark being referred to here is Mark Bichachi. He's a political analyst. He joins us in the Situation Room alongside Dr. Ekuru Aukot, the party leader of the Third Way Alliance. Very good morning to you both.
Morning, Latif.
Good to have you in the show. It's good to have you, Doctor. You know, the last time you were here was what, 2 years ago?
Almost, yes.
Even COVID did not know that it existed.
Exactly. It was before COVID. Yes.
Right.
And now here you are. It's a privilege to have you again.
Thank you very much. And thanks for having me on the show.
Mark, it's your first time in the Situation Room.
Yes, I hear this is where adults come. So
Yeah.
I finally got my ID.
Yes. You finally graduated.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well done and karibu sana.
Asante sana.
We want to have a conversation around the politics of the country. We've seen what has happened over the last couple of months. I don't know, has Third Way Alliance held a national delegate conference?
Not yet, but we are planning to do it. Plus, also, we're not necessarily excited about these gatherings. We are more interested in the content. What do these gatherings actually bring on the fore for the people of Kenya? That for us is the most important thing. And we'll be making our announcement pretty soon. We are also respectful of the laws governing elections in this country. IEBC hasn't declared, it's okay to go for elections. Plus, also, I think there's been a bit of irresponsible leadership in this country for the last, say, 1.5 or 2 years. We're talking about a country that is under a pandemic, or the globe under a pandemic, but people still flouting all the regulations. You have a government that says, wear masks in public places, but then you are gathering people and risking their lives. And these are folks without any medical insurance and the rest. So I think as a party, we've been a bit considerate. I mean, what is the status of the country? What is really are the priorities of the country right now? I think there's been a lot of political heat, unnecessary political heat going towards 2022. And I think as a party, we think we will have a conversation with Kenyans at the right time.
You've said very many things, Dr.
Yeah.
Is Third Way Alliance going to field candidates in the forthcoming election?
We will, and I'll be in the ballot, just to confirm to you.
Is there no requirement in law that you have until the 28th of February to hold NDCs?
Well, to be honest, under the law, NDC is not a must. It's not a must. I mean, unless you read me any provision of the law, it's not really. It's not under the law. So we can either hold an NDC or not hold an NDC, but we will still participate in the election.
And you will be a candidate?
I'll be a candidate.
Presidential?
Presidential, of course.
Again?
Nothing less. Nothing less.
Okay. So we are seeing very many formations coming up, Mark. The party leader of Third Way Alliance is saying, we are not interested in those formations. We shall make our own determination with our membership going forward. But all these formations, as you see them, what do you read? Okay, there is Kenya Kwanza, UDA, Ford Kenya, ANC, and others. I don't know who the others are yet. There is Azimio, or Azimio One Kenya, or Azimio One Kenya, Mount Kenya Foundation, whatever is going to crystallize in the end.
Yes.
Very many formations coming together. Is that a positive thing?
Well, let me first give my good friend Dr. Aukot a bit of a statistic here, so that he has comfort concerning COVID-19. Yesterday, we had one death the entire country due to COVID. The positivity rate is 0.0 6%, and that means there are only 37 new cases in the entire country. Now, the WHO yesterday issued a statement saying that a lot of the protocols being observed by different countries no longer make sense. Okay, so we must be alive as well to the changes within the COVID environment.
There's also a prediction that there will be a spike in May. I hope you're also aware of that.
Well, the thing is, at the end of the day, you fix the plane as it goes. COVID is unpredictable, so you cannot stop life and say that Third Way Alliance is not going to campaign because of COVID. Because I would not advise you to do that as a communication strategist. And that brings me now to the other alliances. First and foremost, we must understand that there are a number of things here that are happening that have yet to happen in the history of this country. Number one, there is a coalition between Mudavadi and William Ruto. Now, why am I saying it has never happened? It is a coalition without promise. If you ask Mudavadi what is the status of his coalition, he has none. All he knows right now is if he is to hold a rally, the UDA party will fund his rally. That's the only thing he knows. He has no guarantee. He has nothing to even go back home to Sabatia and say, hey guys, you know what? Relax. I'm going to be the next Minister of Finance. Has no deal. Okay? At the same time, he's paired up with political presidential candidate who of course has much more clout than him, but he says that he is also running for president, which is really a fool's errand if ever there was one. Now, the issue again goes, if William Ruto is to choose a running mate from Western Kenya, what happens to his 4 years of campaigning in the mountain? And can he make it to the presidency without the mountain? Mathematics says no. It cannot work because you need the mountain and some other parts of the country to make it so. And can you take the mountain without having a relevant running mate? Impossible. And then the X factor, with the entrance of Uhuru Kenyatta as a campaigner, can you compare the likes of Ndindi Nyoro to the campaigning tactics and the popularity of Uhuru Kenyatta? Does he have people who are his surrogates in the mountain who can really displace the person of Uhuru Kenyatta, his utamakiness within the mountain? These are the critical questions. So without these answers, this coalition seems a bit ragtag. But things are not faring much better for an alliance called One Kenya Alliance, which has true to Kalonzo's form, confused us last evening completely, because he says he's at no point deputizing Raila, but he wants to have a discussion. So it means he wants to have a discussion where he's at the top of the ticket. Now, my question is, if we were to have a primary between Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, in which universe would Kalonzo Musyoka win?
Latif, the sad thing about this country is this kind of analysis from people like Bichachi.
Is it not factual?
The preoccupation with the one or two personalities about a country of 50 million Kenyans saddens me. You're a very intelligent young man like Bichachi coming to the show here, analyzing situation, but do not want to live out of the box. Okay? And this is the reason why Ekuru, Aukot, I will be in the ballot and I'll even vote for myself and I'll go home to sleep happily. Because I think Kenya cannot be defined in the context of one or two individuals going forward. And we have failed to change the political narrative in this country for the last almost 50 plus years. And when you analyze, when people like Bichachi analyze, this formation, this and that, this is the reality, they are also not telling us the content these people are bringing on the table. Okay?
But that was not the question.
No.
I was not asked.
Bichachi.
You interrupted me, so allow me to take back my time.
All right.
Number one, I was not asked, to talk about the content of the alliances. I was told to give an analysis of the alliances.
So can we talk about the content? Let's talk about the content.
Let me finish.
Because that's the most important
thing.
Allow me
to finish, Doctor.
Yeah.
Allow me to finish. When I went to school, they told me, read the question and answer what you were told. You do not ask your own question and answer it. And I'm also not the host of the show. So if you'd allow me to finish about the individuals, because politics is about individuals. I've never seen
And
50 million people
rejoinder.
elected to any office together. It is about individuals. And we have to discuss about the popularity of certain individuals, because it is individuals who, when you go to the ballot, you will see a face. You will not see Ekuru, Aukot, and 20,000 others. It is not written et al. There.
So what you're saying, Bichachi, is, for example, in your reading, the Azimio coalition can only be a formidable force if it is Raila at the helm.
Well, let's... No,
if
no, no.
the Azimio coalition has a Kalonzo or a Moses Kuria or a Martha Karua at the helm, it is dead.
Now, let me put it in perspective, okay? You see, the person at the top of any ticket has to be considered the most popular. Okay, it is the truth in the United States of America. It is the truth in South Africa, because at the end of the day, the biggest campaigner of any political party or coalition is the person with the most clout. That's how it is. For example, if you come to a show like this where there are 3 hosts, okay, there is always a popularity matrix, and at the end of the month they will sit down somewhere at corporate and look at the 3 presenters and say, you know what, this person gives us the most mileage. They get most advertisements, they get most mentions. That's how life is. Now, to deny the reality of the popularity of certain individuals can't work. But to answer your question, if Raila Odinga was to say that I support Musalia Mudavadi, I support Kalonzo Musyoka, that's a different equation, because then you've got an additional support to the support that already exists. Because unfortunately in this country we do not have primaries. If we had primaries the way the Democratic Party or the Republican Party has in the United States, and I use them as an example because they're the most understood, then you would be able to siphon through different counties and different primaries, and then be able to say this is the most popular candidate.
You've deconstructed what you just said then. Because you've said that if Raila were to say that Kalonzo would be the candidate that I support, then Azimio would still sail through.
Yes.
But you had started by saying that Kalonzo should not even contemplate demanding that he have a conversation that he be supported.
Because that time is over. Raila Odinga has declared that he is running for the presidency.
And Kalonzo has.
No, but you see, here's the fact. Let's
Maybe
base.
we can bring in what Dr. is saying here, because I think it's important to look at this, that there are certain individuals, or there are others who would now have an opportunity to place themselves in a position of importance when it came to leadership, but unfortunately are often ignored or not given the attention. Why do you think that is? Because if we're all running a race, the onus is upon you as the individual who wants to participate to bring yourself out there. Now, it is often said that we're going to give attention to the people who are putting themselves out there. If you're not, what do? Whose responsibility is it then to make yourself be seen? We wouldn't have known if you were running for president until you said it today.
No, I've said it before. I
Right?
said it in 2018. I said it in 2019. I said it in 2020. It's just that you media people choose to ignore us, the rest of us. No, but
You're ignoring him.
So
when
there is
he's
a
sitting on
question.
your show.
Why do you think that is so?
Why is that the problem?
2 years
Why is that the issue?
later, 2 years later,
Terry.
I'm invited to Spice. 2 years later, that was the last time I came here. But had I been invited regularly to come to Spice and tell Kenyans what I stand for, you know, I mean, listen. Let's be very frank. In 2018, I started a campaign called Punguza Mizigo Kenya. Okay? And the content of that campaign was to reduce the cost of governance in this country. And I made certain propositions. Well, I got some coverage. After that, we were silenced.
Why?
We were actually blacked out. I don't think, I mean, until today, for the last 2 years, I've not come to KTN. Okay? I never went to,
The other media houses.
All the other media houses. Why? Because media owners, for example, want to propagate a certain ideology, certain personalities. And I remember asking some of my friends, I mean, I've got friends, including one of your bosses here, was my schoolmate in Cabernet Boys back in the days. And they told me, Ekuru, you know, if certain names don't appear in newspapers, we won't sell them.
So why do you think we've invited you now then?
I don't know. Maybe Latif can tell you why he invited, but I've come here. I've come here to tell my story.
Daktari, I really need you to answer that question.
Yeah.
I really need you to come to that point. Is that why then? Whose responsibility is it to make yourself seen and heard and known as a contender? It doesn't matter whether it's MCA, whether it's governor, senator, president. And you say there's only attention that's paid to certain people. Whose responsibility is it?
I'll respond this way. First of all, the responsibility has to begin with the individual, including myself. I have to put myself out there, tell my story, and tell Kenyans why they need to elect me as the next president. I haven't been able to do that in the last 1.5 years because for me, I don't feed politics. Politics doesn't feed me. I'm a lawyer. I practice law. I've been in South Sudan helping with the making of the constitution there, and that's what feed me. Because for me, the problem in this country also is that you have got people who do nothing other than just wake up one morning, look for where somebody has died, funerals, to go and make political statements. I don't do that. I wake up in the morning, go to my office, and attend to clients. But when it comes to political time, political discourse, I have to make my contribution, and that's why. So you may not have seen me every day because that's not my politics is not my career. I would like to participate in political discourses at the right time.
So you're not 100% committed, not keen in the game.
No, I am 100% committed, but everything has got its own time.
Unfortunately, politics doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it doesn't. And you see, my question to you is you see, there's ivory tower politics, where we want to say that politics happens 3 months to an election. We want to say that SpiceFM, as an example, must give equal opportunity to every person. But the truth of the matter is this, that if you look at the presidential debates of 2017, remember there was a court case in both presidential debates, actually, for the media to be forced to give space to people and the media had argued that based on your percentage popularity, we should cut it off at some point. Now, the truth is, in the United States, unless you've got a certain percentage, you're not sitting next to Trump and Biden, for example, in that debate. And this is what we call real politics. So there is the idealized imaginary world where you do not hold a rally, you have good principles, you are in South Sudan, and you expect Kenyans to vote. It's not going to work. The truth of the matter is this, that if Kenyans don't see you in a rally, don't see you in those funerals, don't see you when they're doing a harambe for their mother to get out of hospital, you are not considered a candidate. And that's the
simplicity of our politics that we at Third Way Alliance are actually challenging. And let me tell you, Bichachi, and I'll be honest with you, I won't die if I don't become Kenya's president. Yeah? I won't die. But what kills me every day is our subservience to cheap politicking, to cheap narrative, like the one you're saying. I have to be in a political rally to be. No, let me tell you, it could be the real politic
every day.
No.
It could be the real politic. But let's look at
which politics in the world is done without rallies.
Let me tell you, the current president of Ukraine, who I admire so much, never held any political rallies. The current president of Ukraine. I mean, you can check the facts. It's also about how do we change the mindset of our people. And for me, my contribution to this country's politics is this. I am not going to play the usual politics of Kenya, because if we analyze the context, the benefit of that politics, of rallies or whatever, what is the benefit of it to people?
Oftentimes, when you hear, we often, when we're trying to describe things, we talk about them in the negative. And follow me here. We say this is not the way it ought to be, right? But we also, in development circles, we are taught that in order for us to see it, then tell us how it should be. So you've said this doesn't work. It's simple politics, simple-minded politics. It doesn't work this way. You don't have to be in a rally. How ought it to be?
So for me, for example, I want to begin here by saying that you people who have got the space to talk to Kenyans every day ought to contribute to how we can change the mindset of Kenyans. You have a constituency who listens to you every day. I think we all owe this country some level of responsibility and say, let's analyze the content. For example, in these political rallies that we've seen for the last, 3-4 years, what do they actually communicate? What is the content of this? I really struggle so much to listen to what is it that this political rally actually produce as an outcome. that will change the mindset of Kenyans to think differently. I see nothing. For example, let's be.
You say you see nothing completely.
I see nothing.
There's nothing that they do.
But Dr.
I see tribal mobilization.
Yes.
I see commercialization of politics. Maybe that's something. But for me, as a Kenyan who is interested in a new Kenya, and let me tell you, at my age right now, the only thing that stands between me and life is probably death, and that can happen anytime. So the only thing I have to do right now is to be truthful about the kind of Kenya that I want to bequeath my children.
But I actually agree with what you're saying. Yeah. But if you have these values that you believe in intrinsically, and you have outed rallies, those are not avenues that you will use to put across your ideas. How then do you put your ideas across to all Kenyans?
This is what I'm asking. How ought it to be?
Dr. let me say something. You know, we must disabuse this thing that if it's something you don't do, then it's intrinsically bad. You know, rallies are effective ways of communication. Now, let me finish, because you said
I have no problem with rallies. What I'm saying is, wait a minute.
You said my narrative is cheap. Okay. So I said that politicians need to do rallies.
Did he really say that?
Yes, he said.
No, he didn't.
He said it. No. But anyway, let me make my point.
What I'm saying is this, as you respond, let me put in context. There's nothing wrong with rallies, but I want to see what do these rallies communicate in terms of change that we want in this country. Let me tell you, the individuals, and I can see your Azimio.
How?
It's written on your head, Mark.
It is. Is it like
the mark of the 666 on my forehead?
No, but Bichachi, tell me the import. I mean, what is the outcome of this political rally other than mobilization, ferrying of people, to fill in stadiums and whatever? I mean, tell me what really.
One of the key questions that Aristotle asked about democracy was this: who should be given a chance to vote? Because his argument was that citizens with the highest intelligence and highest stake in a country should vote, and those who have nothing should not.
Weighted voting.
Yes. Yeah. And then somebody, I think it was Nietzsche, who then said that in any town where there's an election and there are two people running, the dentist and the candy salesman, the candy salesman will win, even though the city needs the dentist. Now, here's the issue. In times past, there was two roles. There was a king and a jester. The king's job was to rule and the jester's job was to joke. Unfortunately, with the democracy of today, the jester and king's job are twine. If you are unable to dance the tune of the public, you will not get the vote to rule. That's how it is. Now, the question you've got to ask yourself here is that how do you then transmit intellectual ideas to a populace that wants to be entertained? This is the question. And therefore, when you say the rallies are void, I do not think so. Let us look at, for example, the conversation that UDA has started. The conversation about why not change our economic model. I do not agree with it because they've given no substance to it, but it's a conversation that they convey during their rallies and all of their speeches. If you look at Azimio, in fact, if you just look at the term Azimio la Umoja, which means aspiration towards unity, there is an agenda. Raila Odinga has given a 9-point agenda, and I can assure you, in all of these rallies, they're spoken about. However, in those rallies at the same time, there is a lot of what I would call frivolous entertainment that ranges from abusing people to calling people names and things like that. Now, unfortunately, because the king and the jester are twine, that part is what many Kenyans will trend, they will follow. And if efficacy of such behavior is crowned by the fact that the biggest joke of all, the prison prefect, I call him, former governor Sonko, won by making a lot of jokes.
And that's why
let's take a break. We'll continue with this conversation.
And I need to
respond to this. Yes, we need to have that. Spice. Our guests this hour are Dr. Ekuru Aukot, the party leader, Third Way Alliance, and Mark Bichachi, political analyst and also political communications expert. You wanted to respond to Mark?
Yes. What I wanted to tell Mark is this. First of all, I like his analysis. but his analysis on studios doesn't help Kenyans. I wish he could be out there and offer himself like the way I've offered myself to actually try to change this country. And, you know, brilliant people like Mark and the rest just sit in boardrooms and talk. And they eloquently analyze situations and problems in this country. But I wish Mark would offer himself, former coalition people like myself and many others that actually want to change the political narrative in this country. Now, coming to the formations, the political formations in this country. You know, today we are talking about Azimio la Umoja. For me, if you ask me about Azimio, it died a long time ago, as soon as we got independence in this country. That's when there was the aspiration of unity in this country, where we promised Kenyans that we'll eradicate disease, ignorance, and poverty. Today, there are many poor Kenyans than there were before. So this idea of Azimio, me, I think is Azimio la Ukora. There's really nothing I read from this Azimio. The same thing, you have another formation calling itself One Kenya Alliance. The symbol being a wheelbarrow. In the 21st century.
No, that's the other one. That's the Kenya Kwanza.
Kenya
That's
Kwanza
the
is a
other one.
wheelbarrow.
Yeah, but they have since, I don't know. You know, Kenya Kwanza, we don't even know which one. There's a Kenya Kwanza of Kalonzo and the Kenya Kwanza of...
That is one Kenya.
Yeah? One Kenya.
One Kenya and
One
Kalonzo's
Kenya
is
and
one
Kenya
Kenya.
Kwanza.
Yeah.
It's
Kenya
like-
Kwanza is the
So
wheelbarrow party.
there's one Kenya, Oka, that is Azimio. There's Oka, that is the wheelbarrow.
Okay.
Yeah? No, seriously. I mean, trust me. I mean, I'm not a political prophet, but I tell you today, Kalonzo Musyoka and Gideon Moi will join Raila. Musalia Mudavadi and the rest, of course, have joined the wheelbarrow movement. But all I'm saying is this. I want Kenyans to interrogate these formations and the people behind these formations. Okay? What really has been their contribution in this country, in the light of the fact that they have had the opportunity to be in positions of responsibility and actually make a contribution? Nothing. You know, one moment you have Raila abusing Uhuru Kenyatta, calling him a drunkard, I don't know what. I mean, and then the next minute they are together. The other time you have got Musalia Mudavadi calling Ruto all manner of names, and then they are together. So for me, coming to the question of what do these coalitions actually portend for Kenyans? It's about personal interest of these individuals. It has nothing to do with the people of Kenya or the country. Because even when I interrogate, for example, economy, I mean bottom up, for me the problem has never been the bottom. The problem in this country has been the top. And for me, if we fix the top, if Bichachi today told me he wants to be president of this country, I'll sit and listen to him. Yeah, and if he fix the top, the bottom will conform. So these false narratives that, you know, bottom up, I don't know, Azimio la Umoja, it's all...
But you know, Daktari,
Yes.
the bottom up, much as it isn't a philosophy, a policy or anything, it's a narrative, but it has traction. You may not think so, you may not like it, but it has traction because it's a hope narrative. And the simplicity of it resonates. And when you talk about our history and how we haven't actually changed what our personal goals were at independence, you know, in damning that progress, you're damning yourself and you're damning the very aspirations that you have. Because you're going to, you get us to a position where we have to ask you, okay, if that is the definite and definitive hopelessness that we have as Kenyans, what is this thing that you are going to do that is going to remove us from this despondency? What will you say?
So, for example, I'll respond to you by this way. If I'm going to run for president of this country, my manifesto will still remain Punguza Mizigo. And one of the proposals that we made in Punguza Mizigo was to come up with a ward development fund. Yeah? The ward development fund will focus on the 1,450 wards in this country. And we will say to people, what are your priorities in this ward? For example, if you tell my people, say in Todonyang, or Turkana North, or Lunga, is the wheelbarrow what you guys need? You know, they will tell you security is our major concern, roads is our major concern, education or health. And for me, the only way we are going to fix this country is to equalize Kenya in all the 1,450 wards. Yeah. Secondly, in all these coalitions, do you hear anybody talk about how they can fix theft of public money? At Punguza Mizigo Kenya, we proposed, for us, for example, corruption. I don't even know what corruption is in my mother tongue, Turkana. I don't know what it is in your mother tongue. But if you say somebody is a thief, if you promise people, I'm going to fix a bridge, and then you don't fix it, you're a thief. You have stolen that money. You know, so at Punguza Mizigo Kenya, we are proposing on how we can end corruption and save this country about 3.5 trillion Kenya shillings. We are going to cheapen, to make election cheaper. You know, we are going to reduce the size of government. We are going to reduce this so many sokojinga called parliament. It's just.
But you see, Dr. This is really
those are my proposals,
and we understand the proposals. But you see, anybody can make proposals.
Yeah.
Anybody can bring forth the idealistic situation that you hope will happen. And all these people you've referred to have had similar proposals. And when they speak glowingly of the wonderful things they're hoping to do. There is no government that doesn't have the same policies as you. Then there's the reality of implementing them, and then there's the reality of politics.
Amoga, and that's where you must draw the difference between me, Ekuru Aukot, and them. I have never been in government. I brought in practical proposal on Punguza Mizigo. None of these fellows are brought. I mean, to date, let's be very honest. And you see, I want you to measure me vis-a-vis them. Yeah. Listen, for example, it was Jirongo the other day who was actually analyzing Musalia Mudavadi, and he said there's a time this country was let down by two individuals. A Muindi called Kamlesh Patni, and he referred to the 5.8 billion Kenyan shilling lost under the Golden Bag scandal, and the IMF and World Bank, you know, during the structural adjustment programs. And who was the minister at that time? Musalia Mudavadi. That's when the economy of this country went south. Okay? None of these fellows, I mean, Munga, tell me, Ekuru, you've been involved in a scandal today. So what I'm telling you is this: give me a chance. As an ordinary Kenyan, I may not have a name, a big name. I mean, I've not come from a big family, but I want you to interrogate my ideas and my proposals, what I want to do for this country. And by the way, you know, Muga, sometimes we underestimate small or supposedly small people like us. You know, in 2017, you know, we made a big contribution in this country. We saved this country from violence. A lot of you may not know. And I want to invite you to read the Supreme Court judgment that nullified the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Do you know who actually caused the nullification? It was Third Way Alliance
So the
Kenya.
application by Third Way.
Yes. We are the only ones who actually did an audit of the transmission of results. And I remember sitting down with Raila, and I told Raila, you know, you can't argue this 10 million strong thing. It's nonsense. Kiambu alone, 1.2 million, even if you put all the Nyanza votes, Kisumu, Siaya, Migori, you know, Homa Bay, can't match that. Ujaongeza Muranga, Kirinyaga, I don't know where, you know, Nyandaru and the rest. So I told him, no. Let's look at, and I remember asking my chairman, who is an auditor, ask him, okay, I voted in Kapedo Girls Primary School. Can you please track my vote? Tell me how my vote traveled up to the National Tallying Center. And we are the ones who came up with a list of irregularities and illegalities. And if you remember the words of Justice Maraga Emeritus, he said, because of illegalities and irregularities, we are nullifying this election. That was the audit report from Third Way Alliance Kenya. So sometimes we underestimate our contribution, whether we are popular, Bichachi or not.
That you're on that point. Respond to this one issue by Thomas, who's raising it on Twitter. He says that you are talking about delivering a utopia to Kenyans, yet you participated in the repeat election in 2017, which, according to him, was against the law.
No. First of all, I think he's very ignorant of the law. Listen, elections in this country are regulated by way of law. Yeah, you only go into an election because there's an election act, there's an IBC act, and all that. Okay, there's a constitution. We went to challenge the election, the declaration of President Uhuru Kenyatta through the constitution. The same constitution says under Article 140 sub Article 3, you must now repeat this election afresh. Those are the words of the constitution. You know, and I was in the committee of experts that wrote this country's constitution. You know, so we must follow the law. And what happened is this, and most Kenyans do not know. IEBC had been captured by both, was it NASA? You know, NASA at that time, and Jubilee. They only gazetted Uhuru Kenyatta and Odinga. Yet the declaration from the Supreme Court was, go hold this election afresh. under Article 140, sub-Article 3.
Every other candidate should then have been
It was-
fielded
it
in
was
the
not-
election.
Exactly.
It was not a runoff.
It was not a runoff.
It was a repeat of the election.
Repeat of the election. And they left the 6 of us. I went to court before Justice John Mativo, and I told Justice Mativo, please interpret for us what this means. You know? And Justice Mativo gave an order which we all have to respect, and IBC respected. So I did not I do not betray Kenyans. I only followed the law. And by the way, I mean, like I say, I'm a trained lawyer. I believe in the rule of law. You know, so there's no way I can go against the law.
Okay.
If the law tells me Ekuru, Peter Upper, you know.
That's how it'll go. Mark.
You know, I am quite interested in what Dr. is saying, and I want to just dial it back a little bit. Number one, it is true that you first as an individual have contributed greatly to the history of this country. But it is also true that if you look at nearly every political animal in this country, they have contributed greatly to this country. And it is important to give credit to where credit is due. For example, if you take Raila Odinga and he stands in the Ministry of Infrastructure and Roads, he did something. Give credit to Uhuru Kenyatta when he was Minister of Finance. We had the biggest GDP growth per year in 2010. Give it to him. He has doubled our GDP. There's many things to talk about people, and this is something that we need to correct about our political discourse. This idea that every side says the other side has done nothing is not fair, and it is not true. But at the same time, and let us come now to the promises. Whenever you hear a promise, its worth is only valuable if the promiser can back it up. It is never the promiser. Listen, if I promised Eric here a Ferrari tomorrow, he look at me and laugh his head off because I lack the capacity. Now, I might have the intention and the genuineness of heart to give it to him, but if I don't have the capacity, I don't. Now, how do you determine capacity?
Maybe Eric could also see that you could be lying to him just openly.
No, but that's a point. Like, listen, even in life, you make promises to cross oceans, right? You can't swim across a swimming pool, but you'll make the promise because your heart is in the right place. Now, there are two things here. There is the capacity to deliver. And I want to tell Kenyans, there's this ideology that is flying around that somehow youthful is better. Let me tell you, when I get on a plane, I do not want the captain to say this is the first time he's flying a plane, that he's only been playing on PlayStation. No. I want an experienced captain. I want someone with mettle, with experience and dexterity to run that plane. Because it is easy to promise before you get into government. It is hard to deliver because, and I'll give you an example of Donald J. Trump. By the time he was exiting office, there were more than 6,000 empty positions because he had not gone through the system long enough to know who to appoint where. The fact of a democratic movement is not that you can elect a head of a state by himself. He needs to think through which MCAs, which MPs, which governors, which senators will help him carry his ideology. And that takes time. It takes a lot of experience to build that coalition. So in the capacity to deliver, and I tell Kenyans all the time, look at all our leaders and ask yourself who has the capacity to muscle the support and the political goodwill, not only of the masses, but also of the political class.
How many years does it take to get to have this capacity?
No,
How many years would it require?
No, you see, it can be done in 5 years. It can be done in 10. In the case of Xi Jinping in China, it took him 30 years. In Barack Obama's case, it took him 10 years. But at the end of the day, your capacity is determined by when you're getting to that position, do you have the mettle?
I hear
that
you
is
in
required?
terms of asking those questions, and I'm like, even for both of you now.
I had
the
one
thing
more
is-
point. Can I
yes,
just
yes.
make my last point?
Please.
The other thing is the character of the person. I can have the capacity to deliver, but I prefer to be corrupt and to steal from you. Okay, so I can promise Eric that I'll give him a Toyota that I can afford, right? But really, what I want, instead of giving him the Toyota, I want to steal his job.
Before you ask your question,
you see, so the promise is only as good as the promiser.
But you see, Bichachi, if there is one lie we have lived in this country for the last, I don't know, maybe 50 plus years, is the fact that we are one of the most educated countries in sub-Saharan Africa.
It's a lie.
I think it's a lie.
Why?
It's a lie because we have never applied our intellectual acumen or knowledge to decision making.
Actually, Dr. we have.
No,
What do you mean?
let me tell you, because I think education ought to be able to influence us to make the right decisions. Okay? There's a lot of idiocy and mediocrity I see in our politics today. That the mobilization of people, bringing them together in a stadium, that's what defines our politics. What I'm saying to you, Bichachi, is this. Can we now begin to help Kenyans think differently? You know, you describe America and the rest. People there they listen to a candidate, they form campaigns in their own communities, in their own, location. In Kenya, people expect you to pay them to campaign for you. We have commercialized our politics. Okay. And for me, at the end of the day, those individuals you're describing, whether they have been in government or not, listen, let's then ask ourselves, for how long will we keep on regurgitating around 2-3 personalities about this country? For me, the way I see leadership in this country, I see leadership as a value that must cascade downwards. If, for example, in my home today, I don't instill certain level of discipline on my children, they probably look at me as a useless father. So I see leadership in a country also the same way, that we need a father figure that will actually instill discipline downwards. All these people we are describing, forming these formations, 1 minute they are abusing each other, and then the next minute they are together. It's all a lie to Kenyans. And I think for me, we need to awaken Kenyans and tell Kenyans, can you please critically now think about tomorrow's leadership?
You're assuming Kenyans are not awake.
This is what I was going to say. And I think Kenyans are awake. And I think Kenyans are awake to the reality that there's so many competing issues right now that... are you going to be able to ask somebody who is hungry, for example, to make or interrogate somebody who's standing in front of them in a rally, who is offering them something that could take care of the hungry situation today? And I think the examples that we are giving about the United States, the United Kingdom, you're dealing with a system for whom people's welfare has largely been taken care of. Exactly. So when you're asking them to interrogate something, really, truly, they're not thinking about what they're going to eat that day, so they can sit down and say, okay, actually, let me think about what this individual is saying. But here's somebody, because of a broken system, unfortunately, there are people who are listening to these things thinking, okay, this is great, but then what am I going to eat today? These are the same people.
Who really is in a better position to interrogate?
These are the same people. Hold on. These are the same people that we're asking now to interrogate.
Yeah, and that's why, maybe then the rejoinder question for me, and I'd like to hear your view, is why then is an hungry person thronging these rallies?
Because let's just bring dignity back to the Kenyan human. Number one, the United States, this country that we talk about, has people who believe the earth is flat. It's a big movement. It has people who believe Hillary Clinton eats babies. It's a big movement. You see, foolishness is not domiciled in Africa. Let's just be honest. So when we talk about our people with less dignity simply because they want to follow Raila Odinga, it is not out of foolishness that they do, and it is neither out of foolishness that they follow William Ruto or anybody else. The truth is this, that for the Kenyan person, when they look at Raila Odinga, he symbolizes certain hopes and aspirations that they also believe in. And you, believe you me, a lot of the time when you talk to people, you talk to Kenyans, and I have talked to many of them, they have a reason, and a logical one, for the reason for which they support the candidate they do, and the reason why they do not support another person. And you can argue and say that Kenyan politics is tribal. But I have worked in many countries. My friend, in the United States, there's a tribe called Bible Belt. It is a tribe. Believe it or not, if you go to Germany, all of those different states, Bavaria, Saxony, and the rest are tribes. They're tribal clans. If you go to the United States, what is this Irish, Welsh, and dynamic?
Italian.
Yes. At the end of the day, it is only in Africa where we want to negatively ethnicize ourselves. Let me finish.
Okay.
There is nothing absolutely wrong with me identifying as a Luya. There is nothing wrong with it, because if I identify as a Luya, there are interests that I have. Even if those interests are about how many chickens are in this country, they're my interests.
But then, Mark,
and therefore,
do you have a responsibility, even as you are looking at your candidate and saying, I identify with this candidate because they come from my region, my tribe, and because they represent some certain aspirations. But do you get to a point where you start interrogating their capacity, the same way you've talked about their capacity?
Yes.
So is it okay, the way Ekuru is saying, that let's interrogate these people and look at their actual capacity based on the promise.
The assumption is that the Mwananchi doesn't interrogate. My view on this one. They do interrogate.
But do they interrogate the capacity, or do they get to a point where, like you are, like City has already told us where he is. City is at a point where he's actually looked at the politicians, and then he's revised his reality. And his new revised reality is this guy is never going to deliver.
Latif, before Mark answers, City.
Yes.
Let me give you an example. I was in the committee of experts that wrote this country's constitution, and one of the things that we analyzed is the question of marginalization. Yeah, like me, I come from Turkana. And we used to say in the NFD, the Northern Frontier Districts at the time, that us guys have been relegated to the periphery of this country. Nobody cares about us.
And actually you were.
We were.
It's a reality.
It is true.
Yes.
We were. And I remember under KANU regime, they used to say, kama huko kwa KANU, hakuna maendeleo. So we used to beg to be Kenyans. Yeah? Let me tell you, when we were writing the country's constitution, we said, okay, how do we fix this problem of marginalization and bring a little bit of equality or equity in the development of this country? That's why we went back to the 1992 Provinces and Districts Act of 1992. And we said, we are going to create 47 counties of this country. Then we created Chapter 12, Public Finance. And we said, we're going to redistribute money equitably. Now, to the question of whether we interrogate or not. And the truth for the matter is, even if maybe in the next 20 or so years, only a Turkana can be a governor of Turkana County, or a Luo can be a governor of Siaya, or Kisumu and the rest. But, yes, we pick our own. But our own actually starts stealing from us.
Letting it down.
And that's the question I'm asking Kenyans now today. Yes, even if one of your own is president, of this country, ask critical questions. I am married to a Kikuyu woman, Wanjiru Wamadhenge, from Nyeri. People will think because she's Wanjiru, she's probably benefits because of President Uhuru's presidency. It's complete balderdash, and let me tell you. So that's why we need to begin to interrogate.
Let's conclude the conversation there. We've run out of time.
Give me 10 seconds.
No time.
10 seconds.
No time. Asante sana. We have got to conclude on this.
Spice FM.